Hey guys, how's it going? Sam here and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be starting a series called How to Paint Like Blizzard. In part 1, we're going to be looking at reference and breaking down their style and how to replicate it. You can see on the screen now the final piece, which will be created over several videos. So with that, let's get started. Okay, something I wanted to say before we start the video series, I haven't created any work for Blizzard. So there are people actually on YouTube who have, so it's worth checking out their videos to see how it differs from mine. Obviously take everything I say with a pinch of salt because, like I said, I haven't worked with them. I would love to work for them in the future and I'd love to build a portfolio that shows that I can, and to do that you need to replicate their style. So that's why I've started this series. So I just wanted to get that out of the way so we can get started. So the first thing you want to do if you're trying to replicate someone's style, and I would like to say this video series can probably be applied to any style that you love. It doesn't have to be Blizzard. It just gives you kind of thought processes. It gives you an understanding of where to start to try to create style, because I see a lot of artists asking, how do I develop a style? How do I make my art look like theirs? And I'm going to give you a few ways to think about it, not really tips or tricks, just ways to think about how to replicate it. You know, these artists, they do deliberate things that lend to the style, so that's what we're going to tackle now. So the first thing I will do is bring up some reference like what I've got here. As you can see, I've grabbed a few pieces from Blizzard, varying styles that will kind of help me with the piece I'm trying to create. So you've seen from the final piece that it's going to be a kind of potion master inside a shop, and I wanted, obviously it's an interior shot, it's going to be quite dark, and I wanted all the light to be focused on the character. So as you can see, these pieces are all kind of like that. In the top left, you've got a piece where the lighting sits in the center, the same with this, every single character stands out from the background. So let's go from piece to piece, kind of why I chose them, and break down what I think makes the Blizzard style so distinctive. So the first thing is, I think the obvious one is how chunky all of the assets are in Blizzard. So you look at any of these pieces, take example top right, the book is huge and really chunky, everything has a real 3D-ness to it. I think that's the most important thing with Blizzard. That's what I need to replicate in my piece, and for me it doesn't come natural. In the past I have struggled to break silhouette, so have objects sticking out from the body of the character. So you can see this book here, it really does help break the silhouette from her body, and you can see how fat that book is. So that's really important, and you can see that in every piece here, like bottom left, the size of the pauldrons, how much, if that was real life they would be huge. Wouldn't be necessary for them to be that big, but it's part of their style and it looks awesome obviously. So that's number one. Number two, I would say, is because it's for card art, specifically looking at kind of Hearthstone, because it's card art, they have to be readable from a distance. So if I zoom out, you'll see that these pieces still read quite well, and that is achieved with value ranges. So the characters tend to be the most contrasted object in the scene, and that's because you want them to be the focus. And the background tends to be really muted, really like tight contrast with usually lighter values. Obviously it can be darker values if the character is light, but tends to be lighter values if the character is dark. So if I create a hue and saturation layer, as you can see, if you look at bottom left image here, create a new layer just so I can circle that for you, that one there, you'll see how light, if I color pick these, up here you're looking at halfway up really, all around the back of the character. It's tricky as artists get better and better. It's worth taking this as your base if you're just beginning in art. If you've got a dark character, have a light background. It becomes more nuanced as you become a better artist. So this character's face, as an example, uses very light highlights because it's the most contrasted part of the scene. If you look at this character, she's got unbelievably darks and really bright lights. So she's definitely the most contrasted. If you go to the background, it's all kind of mid-tone. Now you do get some darker tones and some lighter tones. As an example, the cape down here is really dark. As you can see, if I'm hovering over this, they're all right near the bottom as far as value ranges. Behind it is lighter, so that creates the shape of the cloak stands out more. Whereas if you go to the other side, her pauldron is darker with some highlights, but the majority of the shape here, the pauldron is darker and the background is lighter. So you've just got to remember, whenever you've got a character that is dark, you need to put light behind it to make it stand out, and vice versa. And like I said, because it's card art, I kind of went off on a tangent with fundamentals there, but because it's card art, that needs to be really obvious, really distinct. So I need to make sure that my character stands out. The next thing to bear in mind with Blizzard work is it's very colourful, it's very saturated. Not always the case, but it does tend to be, and there tends to be some kind of glowing element that really whacks the saturation up as basically as full as it can go. So taking this bottom piece here, this center one, if you select the green that's glowing from his hands, look how saturated that is. That's basically like if you went all the way to top right, it wouldn't really make much of a difference. Now the background will become less saturated because it will have to be. As you can see, it probably won't really go past this halfway mark as far as saturation goes. So if I kind of run this along here, you can see it doesn't really, it just starts to go into that area, but it doesn't reach over this area. So that's really important. Similar to my last point regarding values, if the whole piece is really saturated, you won't know where to look. So making the background less saturated and the character really saturated really pushes the forms out. And like I said, for a card, that's the most important thing because it really needs to read well from a distance. So that tends to be the case for all of them. If you take this top center one, the pink is going to be really saturated. The golds are going to be quite saturated. If you were to paint this more realistically, you'd be choosing a gold kind of over this area, not over this area. So, by the way, when I'm saying this and this, I'm looking at the colour palette. Hopefully that's reading well on the video, otherwise it's me just blabbering on. So that is colour. The next thing to mention is compositions and the posing of characters. So again, because it's card art, they need to be readable from a distance. So you tend to find there's one character centralised in the image. If it's just a character and the environment doesn't need to be displayed and there's not much movement, it tends to be of kind of knee height upwards. So you can see most of these character pieces I've got here are from the knees up. And that's just so you can zoom in slightly. Now with my final piece, you know that is basically the composition I've chosen. From you see the kind of, the legs are in shot upwards with a table in front of them. So that's quite important. There are obviously more motion shots that I haven't got here which show the whole character, and that tends to show a little bit of the environment and the entire character, and they do that a lot as well. The kind of top left shows more of the environment because her character in the scene is what's important to be shown, not just as say bottom left, it's focusing on the character, not really the environment. You know, you could swap that environment out, you'd read it the same way. So that's definitely worth bearing in mind. So I think that gives a general basis. I'll probably go more into depth with replicating their style as I work on the piece because you have to think about it constantly. So I'll kind of leave that there. The next thing I grabbed reference for was actual potions and shelving units and cloches and, you know, glass. I've actually grabbed way more than this, but I just kind of grabbed a few of these just to give you an example of what I've used. For me, I knew I wanted loads of bottles in the background, so I wanted to understand how light passes through bottles, how objects sit in them, what kind of objects you'll find. I believe the bottom left is actually from the Harry Potter experience, which I've been to. It's just amazing. As a side note, check that out if you're over in the UK. I'm pretty sure that's where, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's where that's from. I grabbed old books, so I understood how the wearing might work on them, you know, alchemy symbols, the tables, you know, apothecary type tables with little drawers on the front of them. Anything that I needed to create realism and make it feel like it exists, and that's the point I really want to hammer home. Not enough people when they're starting pieces grab enough reference. A lot of artists are talking about it now, and it's great, by saying if you do not have reference, you won't be able to create a realistic view of it unless you've done it loads of times previously. So if you're not sure of how something looks partway through your process, as an example, and you're really struggling, ask yourself, have you grabbed the right reference? Because you probably haven't. If you can't work out how something looks, you haven't grabbed the reference. So that's that. And finally, I'll quickly go over these. It's just some character ideas. So costuming, I always really struggle with costuming. I find it's the hardest thing in a character piece for me. I'm not sure why. I think fabric is really unpredictable as far as how it folds. My brain just can't work it out sometimes. So like I said, this is just a few images. I grabbed a lot more, but it's mainly focusing on, you know, how belts are held together, which way they wrap, you know, how the fabric lays over someone. I take my own photos quite a lot of the time if I'm really struggling with how fabric lays over a person. Just general ideas of what my character might wear, still sticking to the style. So that is the reference part of the painting. This is the first part finished. In the next part, we're going to be looking at the 3D model that I've created, a new piece of software called Character Creator, and the general start of the process. It's going to be a good few videos, I think, probably, you know, 4 or 5 maybe. I'll see how I get on and see how people respond to them. I'm hoping people find some use in this first part. I know probably it's the boring part no one really wants to watch, but yeah, I hope it's helped someone. I know it would have helped me a good few years ago, because I didn't understand how style really worked. I kind of took pieces at face value, didn't really work out how they were created. So hopefully that's given you a few ideas. That's it. Thanks for watching this part. If you like it, definitely hit the subscription, hit the thumbs up if you like it, hit the thumbs down if you don't, and try to hit the notification bell if you want to see the next part, because I don't upload very often and it will just get lost in your feed. So that's it. I'll catch you in the next one.